they're nothing but a bunch of political cowards. They don't even want to mention the word tax, because your taxes been liberal. Whoa, you know, like that's supposed to be something you're afraid of. A progressive taxation passion. I was telling Governor Patterson, a P.I.T. surcharge, a personal income tax surcharge that went all the way up to 10 million. You can get $12 billion. I have to give him credit for this. He did take our advice on just one stage. He did 1.5% for those making $250,000 or more. If you see some of the critics of that, they say, yeah, but you didn't get the $4 billion that you projected that you would get. They got $3.2 billion from doing that. But what he didn't do, and what I would propose, is that you go from $250,000 to $500,000, 1.5. $500,000 to $1 million, 2.5%. $1 million to $5 million, 3.5%. 5 to 10, 4.5%, and 10 and over, 5.5%. You will get $8 to $12 billion. That only affects 63,000 people, less than 1% of the state's population, and they will not be hurt. And if you do that for 3 years in a row, sunset it, and tell them that we'll roll it back after 3 years just to help us out of this mess. Those who have more should pay more. Should pay more. Plus a stock transfer tax. A few pennies on a stock transfer tax, you get $2 to $3 billion. Oh, but they'll shut down Wall Street. They'll shut down the stock exchange. They'll leave. They'll go. No, they won't. They're not leaving New York. There's too much money to be made. Couple that with the P.I.T. surcharge, along with closing corporate loopholes. Now, there's some corporations that get 35% write-off on some of their profits and some of their things. Just knock it down to 25% write-off. And that extra 10%, you got to put it in our budget. If you just did that, that's billions of dollars. The commuter tax, hundreds of millions of dollars. And I would stop the floating of tax-free bonds. These developers, you think we're on welfare? You should see how much welfare they get. The tax-free bonds, they built Yankee Stadium with tax-free bonds. They built Met Stadium with tax-free bonds. They build in the Nets Arena with tax-free bonds. When they float tax-free bonds, that money doesn't come into our coffers. They get land dirt cheap. Hundreds of millions of dollars cheap, you know, for land. These things must stop. That's a whole package. Realistically, to make that happen, to make the Senate do that, to make the Assembly do that, from the power of the governor's position, with a person like myself and like Ramon, because he'll be the Attorney General, we're going to build a people's movement. See, we can't just get in government and go, you know, behind the doors and have some negotiations with the senators and the Assembly. No. We're going to keep we're going to bring our activism to the State House and say we can't do this without the people. We've never achieved anything in our movement without the masses. And that's what's missing in government. Those are some of the proposals. When those things happen, you can abolish the MTA and reduce or even cut out the transit fare. Because you know how much they raise out of the transit fare? $3 billion. They're saying $3 to $4 billion they get from the fare. Well, if you have a taxation package like that, that's really probably $20 billion. If you have a $14 billion deficit, you close that, and then you can use some of that money that you dedicated to CUNY, SUNY. You dedicated to the transit fare. There's some dedicated streamlines from that kind of package. I'm telling you, we don't have to be in the situation we're in. It's a $136 billion state budget, a $63 billion city budget. New York City's budget is larger than 48 state budgets in the United States. Every African country's budget is larger than. Every Caribbean country budget is larger than. Something's fundamentally wrong in a city, the richest city in the world, and you have the poorest congressional district in the country is the South Bronx, Jose Serrano's district. The area median income is $19,000 for a family of 4. My East New York, $26,000 for a family of 4. Harlem, $28,000, $29,000, family of 4. Bed-Stuy, $28,000, $29,000. Cara Maloney's, Upper East Side, $72,000 for a family of 4. What happened? How do you have that kind of income disparity in the state? What happened? How did that happen? Manufacturing jobs lost and we didn't get the work there? Yeah, that's part of it. But the income disparity has a lot to do with the racism in the budget process, the racism in economic development, and the way I would close that gap. I'm going to designate through a commission the most impoverished areas in the state and then have a dedicated funding line to them. Because see, those areas, we need to say, let's bring capital and expense money to those areas. You know how you can create jobs? The procurement budget. I'm just talking about, now just New York City's procurement budget, contracting budget, is $17 billion. That's separate from the $63 billion. $17 billion, just New York City's contracting budget. Give it to Black, Latino, women-owned businesses so that they can employ their people and increase employment, living wage jobs in our area. Contracting with unions and all of that. $17 billion, just New York City. The capital budget, just New York City, $8 billion. When you have capital money, it is the executive branch that determines how it's spent, what's going to be built. Stadiums or schools? Stadiums or youth centers? You determine that, and who gets the contract to build them is determined. And that's where we could turn this thing upside down. Some of them you're going to need a revolution to make happen. But there are others that we can put pressure. We can put enough pressure in this state to make some of those things happen, and at least those issues should be out there. And then for our community, we got to do something about the stop and the frisk and the police abuse of deadly force and the brutality. We have to do something. 50% black male unemployment, 40% Latino brothers unemployment. We got to do something about that. And we have to make sure that race gets dealt with, because racism permeates every institution in this state. And finally, Freedom Party feels wholeheartedly that unless we deal with the issue of power, it's all about power. You better have it or be able to influence it, have leverage over it. Because every quality of life issue in our community is controlled by a state or city institution. Health, sanitation, employment, policing, firefighting, you name it. Businesses, there's some state or some city institution having a tremendous impact on that. Earthstat law, there's a whole lot of things that needs to be repealed. We want home rule over housing, controlling that. Mayoral control, got to go. That got to go. Quine is unqualified. He shouldn't have never been in. The charter school movement, stop. We ain't going to let you rip off the public education with charter schools. That's a game. We have a plan for education. We have a plan for all of this stuff. But we do have a serious platform, but my delicate situation is we can't go out there and say this is a Freedom Party platform. We never had a Freedom Party convention around the platform and had the masses involved in making that platform. So we got to talk some of the stuff. We're talking in generalities, even though I do have specifics. We have to be ginger, as we gingerly tightrope that move. But honestly speaking, straight up, I would really be the best governor this state ever had, and it can happen. 50,000 votes, we got a party. 300,000-400,000 votes, we got a lot of leverage as a party. 1.6 million votes, and I'm the next governor of the state of New York.